Welcome to our picks for week 9 in the Canadian Football League. And I don't know how you felt last week, JC, watching week 8 come to a close, but I felt ripped off. I was 3-0 against the spread up until that fateful ending where Trey Ford threw a check down to a Montreal Alouettes defender and the Alouettes scored a touchdown to cover the season-wide spread of 10.5 points. I was yelling at my TV. How about you?
Yeah, it was a pretty devastating blow when they got that backdoor cover, but as you know, I care more about my straight up picks than against the spread. So the bigger one for me was the Edmonton Elks against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I, of course, picked the Riders. That 57-yard field goal killed me, Hodge. It killed me.
I also picked the Riders to win, but I picked the Elks to cover. So I was happy either way against the spread. Not so much straight up. We both did have a good week in week 8. We were both 3-1 straight up and 3-1 against the spread. On the season, JC, you are 24-6 straight up. I'm 20-10. And against the spread, we're both 19-11. So I'm pretty happy with those numbers, but there's of course always room for improvement. And that's what we'll look to do this week. On a programming note, we will not have a picks show next week for week 10, but JC and I will be back for our picks in week 11, so bear with us. Let's get in to week 9. The BC Lions will visit the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on Thursday night, where the Blue and Gold are 6-point favorites despite having a 1-3 record at home. The Lions will start Caden Salter at quarterback after he impressed in relief of Chase Bryce last week. The 23-year-old started 9 games at the University of Colorado last season, going 3-6 as a starter. Meanwhile, the Blue Bombers will be without right tackle Jarrell Broxton as he's on the 1-game injured list with a knee ailment. Micah Vanterpool, who started 6 games last year, will fill in his place. Can the Lions stem the bleeding from a 1-5 start, or will Winnipeg bounce back from last week's beatdown loss to the Stampeders?
I'll be up front, Hodge. I have a couple of wild picks this week, and this is the first of them. I think the BC Lions can steal this game with rookie quarterback
Wow.
Caden Salter at the helm. I'm all on the Salter bandwagon. I think he's going to make a ton of mistakes, but I also think he's going to make some really explosive plays, and that Winnipeg defense has been vulnerable to explosive plays at times this season. He's got the arm talent. He's got the athletic ability. I think those veteran receivers like Keon Hatcher and Justin McInnes are going to step up and help him. So I think he's a massive upgrade over Chase Bryce. On the flip side, Drew Brown has struggled in terms of protecting the football the last couple of weeks. I think the Lions can take advantage of that. They've got one of the best run defenses in the entire CFL. I think that can shut down Brady Oliveira. And the injuries on that Winnipeg offensive line, I think, are going to open up opportunities for guys like Matthew Betts to have a field day against Brown. That's a really sound matchup. If you get enough big plays from your rookie quarterback, I think you can pull it off.
That is a wild pick, JC. And it's not just because Caden Salter's starting, who, by the way, really exciting young player. He's got a ton of athleticism. He's got a big arm, but it's also a little wild that he's starting at this point of his career. He's 23. He was 1 year removed from the collegiate ranks. And I mean, we're going to see inevitably. I mean, there's going to be plays where everyone goes, wow, this kid's he can move his feet. He can really air it out. But there's also going to be at least one welcome to the CFL moment where it's like, what are you doing on that play, right? There's going to be high highs, but I also think there's going to be low lows for Caden Salter. But the other parts of BC's roster are decimated. James Butler will not play. Imani Bailey will make his first career start at running back. Tyron Walker Hunt is going to make his first career start. He's in at right tackle for Josh Donovan. Then on the defensive side of the ball, you've got a slew of changes. Colby Taylor making his first start at defensive end. And with Josh Haggerty starting at safety, the Lions have had to move Deontay Williams to strong side linebacker or to boundary halfback, and then taking over for him at strong side linebacker is Jackson Finley. Like, I have a lot of questions about how BC's defense is going to handle all those changes. And I think you make an excellent point. The Lions, I have the number here, They are only allowing 3.5 yards per carry this season, which is an unbelievable number. They're first by quite a wide margin in that. And that does leave me concerned about how the Bombers are going to be able to run the ball. Winnipeg ran the ball really well in 2 games against Calgary. They haven't run the ball great against anybody else. So the Lions will pose a big challenge there, because I think that was one of the big reasons the Bombers lost that game last week, is they did not get Brady Oliveira involved enough on the ground game. That said, at Princess Auto Stadium, where they are expecting another huge raucous crowd despite the 1-3 start, I think this game has to belong to the Blue Bombers. The Lions are traveling on a short week, rookie quarterback, 6 new starters. I admire your cojones, JC, but I am not following you on that pick. Give me the Bombers to win and cover the 6-point spread.
Montreal Alouettes will visit the Ottawa Redblacks on Friday night, where the Redblacks are 7-point home underdogs. The Alouettes got a backdoor cover over the Hamilton Tiger Cats last week, despite Davis Alexander and Tyson Philpott having uncharacteristically quiet games, though they're coming off a short week with only 4 days of rest. Montreal will visit the winless Redblacks this week, who will likely have Lewis Ward back in the lineup, as Brett Lothar is dealing with an injury to his quad. Can the Alouettes keep the good times rolling, or can Ottawa get the shocking win?
This might be a lazy take, but I'm sorry. How can you pick the Red Blacks until they give you a reason not to? Like, I'm happy to pick the Red Blacks to cover this spread. These two teams did play a relatively close game back in, I believe it was week 3 in La Belle Provence. That said, the Alouettes have been unbelievable on offense this season. They're coming off a down performance against a much better defense in the Tiger Cats. I don't think the Red Blacks pose that same threat defensively. And I mean, yeah, the Red Blacks are coming off a bye, but do we really trust this team to make the most of the extra time off? Head coach and general manager Ryan Dinwiddie was talking about before the break, they're going to do a bunch of self-scouting and they're going to fix this and they're going to get these details aligned. Well, the last time we saw this team play, they had an unbelievably epic collapse late, stealing defeat from the jaws of victory against a Blue Bombers team where they dropped 5 interceptions in that game. So I have no faith in the Ottawa Red Blacks. I will not pick them to win a game until they actually do win a game. The Montreal Alouettes can win this game with their B game. They might even be able to win it with their C game. And heaven forbid they bring their A game, in which case the Ottawa Red Blacks are simply not going to be competitive. So I will take the Alouettes to win. I will take the Red Blacks to cover, and it is the Canadian Football League. Any team can win. The Red Blacks could win this game, but I am not willing to pick them until they show me they can get a W.
Hodge, I have the door of my office locked today. So if anyone wants to come and drag me to the loony bin, it'll have to be by force, because I'm taking the Ottawa Red Blacks to win this football game. I know, shocker. But I've said before on this Picks podcast that there are only 2 certainties in CFL football. You will not go undefeated and you will not go winless. To me, this seems like a perfect spot for the Red Blacks to steal an unlikely upset victory. They're coming off the bye. They should be more grounded, more focused. They should have done that self-scouting that Ryan Dinwiddie laid out. And the Montreal Alouettes are a little bit banged up. They're on a short week, and they've played a number of games where they've let opponents that are beneath them come back late. The Red Blacks have played the Alouettes tight before. I don't think they're the better team overall, but when you add in the rest disparity and the fact that they are due one at this stage, I have the Red Blacks winning this football game.
The Calgary Stampeders will visit the Hamilton Tiger Cats on Saturday afternoon, where the Tabbies are 5.5-point home underdogs. Calgary laid the wood against Winnipeg last week, putting up 52 points as Vernon Adams Jr. continued his MOP-like start to the season. Tyreek McAllister scored 3 touchdowns, and Ben LaBrosse intercepted 3 passes. Meanwhile, the Ticats struggled to move the ball in a 31-18 loss to Montreal, managing a pathetic 228 yards of net offense. Can the Stampeders continue their ascent, or can Hamilton reverse their fortunes this week?
This is where I'm gonna come back down to earth because I am picking the Calgary Stampeders to win this football game. I think they're the better team overall, and I'm a big believer in this offense with Vernon Adams Jr. at the helm, as well as the defensive line. If there's anyone who can go out there and actually track down Trey Ford in the open field and keep him contained, it's Clarence Hicks. And he's got Florian Malade and Jalen Hutchings out there to help him as well as another cast of characters. This is a good defensive line. This is an excellent offense, and that's why I have them to win this game. Now, I think it's going to be closer than some people might assume. There have been struggles on the back end of that defense. I expect that Hamilton will get at least one or two big plays here. I don't think Ben LeBros getting 3 interceptions is going to be a weekly occurrence, and there will be opportunities there for Trey Ford. And on the flip side, the Hamilton defense has been absolutely spectacular the last few weeks, and they should cause some problems for VA and company. I still don't think it will be enough to get the win. I'll take the Ticats to cover, but Calgary will get the victory.
I've got the exact same pick here, JC. Calgary to win, Hamilton to cover. I think the Tiger Cats offense has maybe been held with kid gloves a little bit the last couple weeks. They were not good in that Toronto game, and they were awful in the game last week in which they lost in Montreal. Yes, the Alouettes defense is really good, but there's a lot of good defenses in the Canadian Football League. And right now, the Tiger Cats are better from a statistical standpoint on defense than the Alouettes. They don't really have a premier pass rusher. Julian Hauser has come back down to earth after an incredible season in 2025, though Philip Osai, I think, has started establishing himself as a force there. If I remember correctly, JC, he was your pick for breakout player of the year. So good for you with that selection. That's come true so far. But what I think is been really special here is just how many balls the Tiger Cats are contesting on the back end. They've been very disciplined. They're shelling everything off deep. And that's the reason why they made Davis Alexander and Tyson Philpott, two MOP candidates, look human last week. We hadn't really seen that up to this point of the season with Alexander and Philpott just killing everybody. So I do think that the Tiger Cats defense is probably not on a sustainable rate, right? If they're on the field for 35, 40 minutes a game because the offense can't move the ball, they're going to break down at some point. But right now, I think they can slow, not stop, but slow Vernon Adams Jr. and some of the elite playmakers they have in that Calgary Stampeders offense enough to keep this one close. I don't think that the Tiger Cats are going to win this game, but I think defensively, special teams, we saw Isaiah Wooden Jr., Sr., pop off in the return game in Montreal with that return touchdown. I think that they can do enough to keep this game close. So I will take the Stampeders to win, but the Tiger Cats to cover at home.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders will visit the Edmonton Elks on Saturday evening, where the green and gold are 1.5 point home favorites. These two teams met in Regina last week, where Vincent Blanchard kicked a 57-yard game winner in walk-off fashion. It appears unlikely that AJ Ouellette will be available for the Riders, which would likely leave rookie Quali Conley to start in his place at running back. Can Edmonton improve to 7-1? Or will Saskatchewan exact their revenge for last week's loss?
I've got a bounce back week here for the green and white, and I want to make it extremely clear. The Edmonton Elks are for real. We've been saying that for weeks. I didn't pick them to win last week, admittedly, but I did pick them to cover a very tight spread in Regina, which they did. And of course, they got the game winner. But if the Riders had a legitimate kicker, the Elks probably don't win that game. And if the officials don't call a borderline at best offensive pass interference penalty on Samuel Emilus, I think Edmonton certainly doesn't win that game. Now, the Elks are still a legit 6-1. They're a very talented football team. Cody Fajardo was our offensive player of the week for good reason. Like, I'm not trying to paint them as a fake football team as pretenders, because that's not true. And it will be expected at least to be a very large crowd in Edmonton. The problem is about a third of the fans are not going to be wearing green and gold. They're going to be wearing green and white. And I think the Rough Riders at the end of the day are further along, right, as a veteran-laden club that has been there and done that. Yes, the Elks got the win this past week, and I still think this game is going to be really close. This, by the way, is my game of the week by a mile. If you can only watch one CFL game this week, make sure it is the Saturday night game between Saskatchewan and Edmonton. Could very well be a West final preview, but I do have the Rough Riders winning this one. I don't think the drop-off from Ouellette to Conley is huge for Saskatchewan, and I think their passing game is going to be able to keep things up, whereas I don't suspect we're going to see another 500-yard game from Cody Fajardo, which came in part because Saskatchewan really had some breakdowns in the secondary. I think the Rough Riders on a long week here are going to be able to fix those problems and prevent themselves from getting exposed on the back end. So in a hotly contested, tight game, give me the Riders to win.
I also expect this to be a thriller. And the reality is, if these two teams played 10 times, I think they each win five. They are that close together in my mind. And on a back to back, logic dictates you take the team that lost the last one to win the next one. That's typically how it goes in these scenarios. As you laid out, Hodge, it's going to be a home game for the Elks, but Rider fans travel exceptionally well. That's going to reduce some of that impact. I think that the game plan that shut down Justin Rankin last week can be rolled over. You make some tweaks on the back end if you're Josh Bell to stop the big plays, the big busts that allowed Austin Mack in behind you, and you get things squared away. It'll be a much better performance from the Sask defense, and I don't think Edmonton can replicate the same level of offensive proficiency. Give me the Riders to win this one narrowly. I expect it to be less high scoring overall than the first matchup between the two, but it should be exciting in an entirely different fashion.
For JC Abbott, I'm John Hodge. Make sure that you subscribe to our Betting Insights newsletter. It's a brand new newsletter, but just like our original newsletter, it is free and you can cancel it at any time. So why wouldn't you sign up? Get all the latest in your inbox for personnel changes, depth charts, insight, analysis, picks from all of our experts and contributors. We've got all the latest at 3downnation.com. So don't forget to sign up and check it out and enjoy the games in week 9.